The only way I was able to continue as a personal trainer for 18 years, and probably I was passionate about it for like the skills of it for the first 3 years, but the only way I was able to do that, which was earning my money and paying the bills and paying for the journal and paying for the podcast, was because I spent at least as much time on the things that were truly my heart. So interviewing like-minded vegans, passionate, compassionate athletes, activists, authors, doctors, because I was doing all of that for free for a lot of years. I'm basically a 13-year overnight success.
Well, Kate, I'm just so excited to have you here today because I've been digging into your journal and V-Lyn has been digging into your website. And it's great to have you here. Back to the future. How are you?
Kathleen, V-Lyn, I am fabulous and I'm super excited to be here with you ladies today.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know V-Lyn has some very important questions to ask you. So I'm going to start with V-Lyn.
Well, and I'm going to start at the beginning. I am always very curious as to how our entrepreneurs got started on this journey to where they are now. You're a coach and you're doing some amazing work. The journal is just one piece of the fantastic work that you've been producing. Tell us where it all got started.
So the nutrition part of it, the food part of it got started way back when I was that typical animal loving little girl who still ate animals. I became vegetarian. I called it ethical vegetarian because it was for the animals at 16. And I guess fast forward a further 23 years, that was when I made that transition to vegan. At that point in time, I was a personal trainer. I'd been a personal trainer for at least a decade, and I was all about health and fitness and creating a body that you love via a very high protein vegetarian diet. And so I spent too long, sadly, initially as the animal eating child, and then as the eggs and dairy consuming vegetarian personal trainer until about 8 years ago. I watched Cowspiracy. I realized that we'd been lied to. We've all been lied to, that animals were still dying for my food choices. And at that point in time, I made the transition to vegan basically overnight. I had fears because, again, I'd built a business around being fit and strong and full of energy as a vegetarian. And I did have hesitation so far as how that might impact vainly my body and also my business.
Well, you know, that actually is a valid concern because I know when V-Lyn and I joined together, our forces together in our business, my business I had for 30 years and she's had hers for nearly 20 years. And it was really, are we doing the right thing by identifying as a vegan-owned business? And we have found it was probably one of the best choices to make, contrary to what we got advised. I know I did. I got advised by people saying, oh, huge mistake, too narrow of a market. And with you moving into the vegan market, because we really want to focus on how you've built your business. And I also want to talk about protein a little bit, but primarily, what were some of the cautionary tales you were given when you decided to start a vegan business, and what were your greatest concerns?
Yeah, so at that point in time, I was basically working out of a gym gym, and I had very loyal long-term clients who had been with me for many of them that full decade that I'd been a personal trainer at the time that I went vegan. And I remember one of the other trainers, when I said, I'm changing from vegetarian to vegan, he said, well, goodbye lean muscle mass. And thankfully, he was wrong. We all know now that he was wrong with that. But as you ladies said, the advice I was given was not to lead with the V word. And I was really conflicted with that because I'm a vegan personally for the animals and it's super aligned with my values. And I needed that alignment in my business as well. And I guess to be totally honest, that was really hard for a lot of years because even though I was locked and loaded as vegan in everything that I do, I had an existing client base and a really successful business of people who came to me when I was vegetarian and didn't really lead with it. So these people that I advised so far as their health and fitness and what to eat to get lean and fit and strong, they still ate animal products. And bit by bit, that became really tough for me. As much as I love and respected most of those clients, there was a mad conflict in me being the ethical vegan. And yet, most of my money I was still earning from people who still ate animals. So, far as the business side of things, it's literally only these past few months where the journal and the online side of the business have taken off enough that I've been able to leave the personal training aside, to completely retire from it, to move away from that and to purely align my values and beliefs on the business side of things, so far as the people I actually work with, and those being at the very least the severely plant-based curious, or even better, the existing vegans.
Well, I first of all have to show people again the journal. It's beautiful. I mean, you open it up, and this is not your typical journal that you're going to find at the five and dime, if you will. This is just such a top shelf product. And you mentioned about that the digital side of things are really taking off. What do you attribute that to? How is it that all of a sudden you've noticed that shift and you were able to let go of really working with people that it wasn't aligned with your ethics?
Do you know, I think about this so often, and there's no sexy answer. It is just hard work and consistency.
Mhm.
And the only way I was able to continue as a personal trainer for 18 years, and probably I was passionate about it for like the skills of it for the first 3 years, but the only way I was able to do that, which was earning my money and paying the bills and paying for the journal and paying for the podcast, was because I spent at least as much time on the things that were truly my heart. So interviewing like-minded vegans, passionate, compassionate athletes, activists, authors, doctors, because I was doing all of that for free for a lot of years. I'm basically a 13-year overnight success, as my father and I joke about. There's no simple solution. I was doing the things that earned me money while consistently committing at least as much time and money and energy to the things that were my heart and that were aligned with my values and beliefs. And eventually, you never know when it's going to take off, right? Eventually, finally, the things that I loved the most started to take off. So it wasn't the online affiliate relationships with people that I didn't know who had big audiences. But what started to really take off was producing a beautiful journal that I'm really proud of and that I use. Like, it is literally the thing that keeps me sane and organized and productive and efficient. But also, it was guesting on other people's podcasts
Mhm.
and just talking about what I do. And finally, that's been the most successful thing. And it's also the most fun and time efficient and cost effective thing to do as well.
That's awesome. Totally awesome. And I heard a lot of things in that unpacking, and it brought a question to mind. When you're on that kind of a journey, you really do some inner work in the
Mm.
process. What would you say is one of the biggest limiting beliefs that got uncovered that you had to actually deal with during the process?
Do you know, I'm always searching for that like massive, like limiting belief, that one thing that you fix and everything changes overnight, right? And sadly, that doesn't exist. However,
Right.
for me, a lesson that I learnt really, really slowly as a mad, passionate animal rights activist, ethical vegan, and I say all of that with love. What it took me a long time to learn was that I was kind of leading with so much passion, but also anger and frustration. And I just wanted to shake the people that I loved and just, show them everything that I had seen and see them make the changes that I had made. And I wanted to do that with my clients as well. And basically, I was leading with anger, to be frank. And the hard lesson or the limiting belief that I had was that actually you need to lead with love and compassion and even deliciousness, as my dear mum taught me, that just lead with food, right? Lead with the amazing vegan food that people just, it is so easy to eat, rather than leading with the brutal, hard facts that I wish everyone knew, but not everyone wants to hear.
I am so glad that you said that, because actually just today I had to run some errands and I was listening to the author of Ultra Processed People. And he said the same thing. He said, you can't shame people into making a change. You can't guilt trip them. And if you try to, they tend to resist and they go further into the behavior. So really glad that you brought that up. And you talked about earlier protein. A big question that people have when they hear that you're vegan or you're making recommendations of doing plant-based eating, they say, where am I going to get the protein? How would you address that with people in a loving way and a way of raising awareness?
Absolutely. And I'll say that I made a few mistakes early days as well. Early days, because I had so much, I guess, vanity and identity beliefs surrounding how I looked and wanting to maintain that, and knowing that all the other trainers and all of my clients, because I so proudly announced I'm vegan now, I knew they'd all be looking to see if any changes happened. So I was looking to hit every single micronutrient in every single meal and have massive amounts of protein and still keep it low carbohydrate as well as high protein. Anyway, that was all completely unnecessary. Plant-based diversity is key. I've learnt that now. And so I would say to people that there is so much diverse, abundant protein out there, and start with the meals that just need a small tweak that you already love. Focus primarily on whole foods, but find those plant-based substitutes that you can love. If you love curry, try it with lentils instead of whatever animal flesh it was. If you love salads, try it with your 4-bean mix or your marinated tofu or whatever it might be. Those simple meals, you're not going to start off with a cauliflower steak if you're used to animal-based steak, right? You're gonna try those very easy to substitute meals.
Right.
And I would say with protein as well, it's not one main event like it used to be when you ate an animal. It used to be like, what's for dinner? Chicken. Okay, so now it's like not what's for dinner, tofu. There's probably going to be multiple sources of plant-based protein in each meal. Not that you need it for that complete amino acid profile, but just because there's so much to choose from and because most plants have protein. So, in a meal there might be falafel and hummus and 4-bean mix and lentils as well. And that sounds like a lot. But I had all of that in my dinner last night, and it was super quick and easy to throw together and really delicious as well.
I love that. And before we go on and Lynn asks the next question, how do people find you? What's the best location?
Thank you so much for asking. My main website is what connects you to everything. It is strongbodygreenplanet.com. So again, just strongbodygreenplanet.com.
Excellent. And for those watching, it's scrolling across the bottom, and we'll be sure to put that in the show notes. So, Lynn, I know you're chomping at the bit to ask. Well, first of all, for that beautiful description of food, and I've got a 4-bean chili going right now that's vegan. So, Lynn?
Well, I wanted to ask you, I again, even from seeing it on the website, the journal, I know you've got several recipes in the journal. How did you go about selecting the recipes in the journal? I know about plant-based diversity, and you want to have, the different colors and the different things, just like what you just said about your dinner last night. How did you come about selecting these particular recipes?
As a personal trainer for 18 years, I wanted them all to have adequate protein and to cover many of your micronutrients, and also to be obviously delicious, but also easy. So often I see these amazing recipes online and I think that looks so delicious, I need someone to cook it for me, because realistically, I am not going to spend hours in the kitchen. So for me, it needs to be easy. It needs to be delicious, and you need to have a really big serve as well. I'm a bit of an emotional eater, and many of my clients are. So the recipes pretty much had to tick those boxes. also some of them are recipes from my dear mum, and she was an absolutely amazing cook. She made the transition to plant-based a few years after I became vegan, and it was a bit of a long story, and the emotional blackmail that I tried with both my parents for many years. You know, what do you want for your 40th? I want no presents. I want you to watch What the Health. Strangely, that didn't work for either of them. Eventually, leading with deliciousness and organizing a full family vegan Christmas was what tipped mum over to starting to listen to my podcast and such. However, to get back to the point of the recipes, she was an amazing cook. And once she became plant-based, she was amazing at veganizing her existing recipes. So some of the recipes like the corn fritters and the bean burgers are thanks to Mama Galli.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Love that.
So I want to make a shift back to business, and I want to talk about how you've grown your business. What have been some of the obstacles along the way? So I'll give you kind of the 30,000 foot view of what I'll be looking for, the obstacles, what you found to be kind of your secret sauce, because I know you said there's not just one thing, but there might be one that's a little more beneficial than others. For example, you said getting on people's podcast shows, which we tend to agree with. We actually teach a course on that. And it's amazing how many entrepreneurs will get on one show and they say, well, that didn't do anything. It's like, no. It's just like going to the gym. You don't go one time. I thought about that as I was lifting weights this morning. You just don't go one time. You go over and over and over.
Yes.
So, Kate, what are some of the worst practices that you found were not good and some of the best practices?
So something I always come back to is to back yourself 100%. So to cultivate an attitude of self-certainty. And I learned this when I had what I like to describe the business from hell. And that was part of a gym franchise. And it was a money hemorrhaging existence of 14-hour days. And that was hell. However, it taught me that I am the person that turns up for me, and I need to cultivate an attitude of backing myself 100%. And that is what I turn to so far as business nowadays. So far as best practices, I think it's really important to find a mentor, to always be seeking out mentors that are where you want to be. And ideally, they're vegan, but sadly not always. And so, for example, for me, after worst practice, spending a lot of years throwing money at mentors that just had good marketing and actually didn't deliver the goods. I've done that a lot. I had an attitude of invest in the business. And that's a great attitude if you're investing in the business with the right mentor, not just throwing money blindly, wanting a quick fix or the one next thing. Anyway, I found the right mentor. She actually produced a gratitude diary that I had been using for years before I created the journal. And I approached her and asked to work with her. And she initially said, no, it's too close of a match. And I said, well, here's the thing. My point of difference is I want a vegan world. Mine is all about the vegan lifestyle. And this point is how it's going to be vastly different. And we worked together, and that was amazing. So finding the right mentor. The back yourself circles back into this, though, because you find someone who has the results that you want. And this is something I had to learn the hard way. Then you take on their advice, and you need to have the certainty of self to when they say something that doesn't fit, whether it's with your values or ethics or whatever it is, it just doesn't feel joyful. She wanted me to create this boring workbook. I'm like, no, the journal's meant to be so stunning that you get seduced into using it, whether you're vegan or not. I don't want a boring workbook like we're back at university. And so learning to stand up and take on the mentor's advice, but also ignore it when it doesn't feel right and it doesn't feel aligned with what you're looking to achieve in the world.
That's great advice. And I do have a follow-up question to that. You mentioned, find a mentor who has what you want and is they're a good fit. how do you know? You said, if they've got results you want, that's one indicator, but how do you do your due diligence? Because a lot of people that are listening to this show and watching the show, they're really just starting out and they want to learn from the people that have been around. They've been around the block more than once. And so for somebody brand new to business and they're looking for a mentor, what's your advice to them on what to look for and when to turn and walk away?
It's a great question. And as I hinted, I've been burnt many times before. And it's really similar to what you do when you find a mentor or even someone to model in the gym. You don't just look at the results that they have. That's one thing. They need the results, whether it's the body or the business. They also need to have a lifestyle that aligns with the lifestyle that you want. So I get up at 4 a.m. 6 or 7 days a week, and I exercise for a couple of hours a day, and I eat exclusively vegan, mostly whole plant foods. Now, if someone wants to work with me and they love to sleep in and they hate lifting weights and they just want to eat meat, I'm not the mentor for them, whether it's from a body composition or probably even a business point of view, actually, because, for example, if you're working with a business mentor and there's this huge thing about their values that clashes with your values, it's going to be a conflict. Like, you're just going to think about it, or I am with that sort of a conflict. I really am. So I would say look for someone who has the results, but also look for someone who has the lifestyle that either you currently have or you would be happy having. Think about your ideal lifestyle, how much time you spend on your work, what you're passionate about, what you give your time and money and energy to. And we share a lot of our lifestyles online, right? Do your due diligence on that person you're looking to hire or even looking to learn from just by stalking online without paying. That counts too. And see whether that's a lifestyle that could work for you.
I love it. I love it.
I love it as well. It takes courage as well to stand for yourself, to back yourself 100%. And, in your coaching today, what do you find is the biggest thing that you are able to tell people about yourself that makes you more valuable and stand out more than others that they might be looking at?
Do you know something that I guess made personal training come very easily to me is you have to walk the talk in real life. Like before I became a personal trainer, I decided what type of a trainer I wanted to be. And I wanted to be the most positive, focused, professional trainer that I could possibly be. And people see that in the gym. The second you rock into the gym, they know you need to be relatable as well. They know that. And that is absolutely what I'm looking to, I guess, portray online as well. That if you want someone who is like super genuine and passionate and focused, all someone needs to do is check out the podcast and see that I'm 851 episodes deep. Like, obviously, I'm a little consistency queen. And, for people looking for a coach or mentor, you need to seek out the person that does the thing well that you would like to do well. If you slapdash and you're just hot or cold and you don't want consistency, again, I'm not your lady, because focus and passion and consistency, that's my vibe.
I love that.
Love it.
And especially what you said about following and looking what people have done online, because I don't do a lot of resolutions, but my commitment for this year is to not react to comments people make about vegans, because you have your trolls, and I'm one of those. It's like, oh, they said that about me, and they don't even know who I am. So of course I respond, and then I start engaging, and that was what I did last year. I've been great so far, and we're a few days into the new year, so proud of myself. But
it is such a waste of energy, right? Energy that you can better put towards so much else, towards the low-hanging fruit and towards the people that are open-hearted and open-minded. You don't want to spend your time with those people who are just not that.
Absolutely.
So people are looking at those responses.
They are.
They're having their own judgment around you in those responses. So yeah, yeah.
Well, some of my responses I've gone, did I really just say that? Oh, but so the show is Veganpreneur Revolution, and our goal is to really create that revolution, to lead that revolution on people having the courage to stand up and say, yes, I'm a vegan business owner, and I'm here to make a difference. And what is your vision for where you want to see yourself in a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road? And then the second part to that question is, where do you want to see the vegan movement?
Well, the second part comes first because I just madly, passionately want a happy, healthy, compassionate vegan world. Like, that's idealistic. It's perhaps unrealistic. It won't happen in the time frame that I want it. However, I am 100% working towards that. And everything that I do, I often talk about effective beats right. Right is me shouting those vegan truth bombs at you because I'm angry and frustrated and it's urgent. Effective is leading with love and compassion and calm. And so that is the future that I want. So far as my business in 1 year, I've just started writing the next version of the journal. It comes out every 2 years. And that is so much fun. I'm in recipe development. I'm in art development. I'm going to do the art myself this time, which is amazing. I come from a fine arts background. And so next year, the next journal will be out. It'll be even more beautiful and impactful and actionable than the last one, which is a nice high bar for me to set for myself. And I want to have an online community that supports implementation of the journal. So that'll start in the second quarter on the 1st of April, and it'll be the Plant Positive Jumpstart because I cover almost too much in the journal. I don't want to take anything of it out, but I also don't want it to be too overwhelming. So I want to help people 30 days at a time jumpstart what is most important to them in the journal so far as adopting a healthy plant-based lifestyle. And I want to build a community around that as well. And obviously still my heart continue with the podcast and continue guesting on other people's podcasts too.
I love that. I love that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So about the podcast, what is your favorite part about podcasting? You do podcasting like we do from both sides of the mic. What's your favorite part and why?
So much. The podcast is my sanity. Previously, as I hinted at, basically all my clients, even though I had a huge positive influence on many of them, they weren't vegan. So the huge joy of the podcast is I get to ask the people I most respect in the world to come spend one-on-one time with me. I learn how they thrive in a non-vegan world. And so much of these conversations has actually taught me, it's nailed in that tough lesson of leading with love, not hate, because I've seen the people that I've interviewed and I've seen the people that are the most successful and having the most impact, and they are leading with love and they are happy and positive and it's genuine. And I've kind of learned that those are the people that I want to model. And it is such an honor and a privilege that there's someone that's a hero out there on the other side of the world. And I say, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And they say, yes. And it literally helps me survive, Kathleen, all those hate comments that vegans might get that we ignore, like connecting every single week with these like-minded vegans. That is the best part of the podcast for sure.
I was going to say, speak for yourself on ignoring. No. Sometimes, and really this is a practice for me, and it's kind of a meditative process of like, can I represent being vegan in the most positive way possible?
Yes.
Because truly it is about, are we walking the talk of kindness, compassion? And so I think that some of us have a lot of work to do. And
Mhm.
I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I get triggered and I have to step back and go, what is it about that that's triggering me? Now, you
Mhm.
mentioned about your online community, and I'm wondering, how can people be notified about, do you have some way that they can get on a subscriber list through your website? Go ahead and give us your web address again, if you would. And how will people be notified every time you do a Jumpstart program?
Thank you. Any of the opt-ins via strongbodygreenplanet.com will announce when that plant positive jumpstart launches on the 1st of April 24. So any of my opt-ins are a great place to stay in touch. And also the podcast. I always announce anything new and exciting via the Healthification podcast.
Okay. And I love that you have several opt-ins, because that's something that we teach our clients is you have to have a way for people to get on your list. We've been working with one woman when we started working with her. She had a lot of people who loved her and followed her, but they had no way of being notified of what she was doing. And now she's got a pretty substantial list because she has opt-ins. So why, in your estimation, is an opt-in important, and what's your favorite opt-in that you have for people?
Oh, I love that question. My favorite opt-in is a really new one, actually. But first things first, you need it to communicate with the people that care about what you do one-on-one and in detail, because, wow, social media, for me, actually, it's not fun. And also, it's not reliable. Anything can change. You're not in control. I love being in control. So that's why I want a lovely supportive list, and I want multiple opt-ins. My newest opt-in is called 269 Vegan Good News, Weekly Good News. And I designed it basically because I knew that we needed to hear good news every single week. It's really easy to get dragged down by all the bad news in the world, vegan or not. And I chose 269 because the amazing James Clear of Atomic Habits, who I interviewed for my podcast, he has the best email on the internet, I think, which is 321 or 123. It provides lots of information, 3 of something, 2 of something, 1 of something. I thought, what's a vegan alternative? I chose 269 because that is a number very well known in the vegan world. It was a calf on an Israeli dairy farm that had the tag 269. A lot of vegans get that tattooed. So anyway, my 269 Weekly Good News email, 2 quotes, 6 wins, recipes, or recommendations, and 9 words to contemplate. So that goes out every week, early Friday morning, Sydney time. And it's just good news in the vegan world and a lot of deliciousness and shout outs to people I respect as well.
I love it. And I'll be real truthful. I've never heard 269. This is the first I've heard of it.
Yeah,
And I've been vegan for a
okay.
while. So tell us the
Okay.
backstory on 269.
All I know is exactly that. Like when I became vegan 8 years ago or so, like so many vegans, I was so passionate. I thought, let's just start getting this tattooed all over my body. When you Google vegan tattoos, 269 comes up a lot. And then you Google why 269, and it tells you the brief story of a calf in an Israeli dairy farm, ripped from its mum, either ready to be a dairy slave if it was a girl or slaughtered if he was a boy. And just the tag that he had on his ear was 269. And it's come to mean solidarity within the movement. And I guess visibility too for that individual. He wasn't a number, he was an individual.
Right, right.
And so I kind of started it. The first headline was, if you know, you know. And, either you know or you Google why and you find out. And it was just a nice number.
First time I've ever heard it. So that is amazing. I have to run out and get a tattoo on that. For sure. Well, it wouldn't be the first. So
yeah.
So. It's funny. I heard it before, but didn't think about it to remember it until you brought it up. And it's something that I think that when it came about, it was a badge of honor that vegans had, that they wanted to keep for themselves, so they didn't publicize what it was all about.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. But interesting that you would have brought that up. And I love the story about how it came to you.
Yeah.
And what you're doing with it, I think it's genius that you've got that for your newsletter. Another way that the vegan revolution can grow bigger with others hearing this story and knowing that there's such value within the vegan community that needs to be shared. And the only way that we do that is getting out there on other people's shows, having our own show. And that brings me to my question, which is, you've done your show for a number of years. And I can't imagine that there was any time that, even just getting to know you, you didn't have this persona of leading with love. But was there an incident or a client or a business thing that really brought this to light for you, that you incorporated it as such a strong value to move forward in your business as leading with love?
Amazing question. Heavy answer. Just a little bit of a warning there. I mentioned my dear mum and the fact that she became plant-based a number of years after I was plant-based, after I just cooked an amazing amount of delicious vegan food for the family Christmas. So just over 2 years ago, and I will say, mum becoming plant-based, especially given that my father is the anti-vegan. He thinks veganism is selfish. I mean, never heard that before. That's ridiculous. Anyway, it was very hard for mum to become plant-based because she was not supported by her husband. It brought her and I so much closer because I just had so much respect for what she was doing and how she was doing it. She'd listened to my podcast. She even became a little bit of an animal rights activist and would bring up why she was vegan very readily in conversations. Then just over 2 years ago, my dear mum died suddenly and completely out of the blue, as bad as you could possibly imagine. I had never anticipated this. I always thought, because mum was so warm and healthy and her attitude was so amazing and she was so loving and kind and did so much, I always thought she'd be calling me to say, Katie, it's your father. I never even considered it would be the other way round. And it was the other way round. And it made me think a couple of things. One, I have no regrets so far as my relationship with my mum. It was amazing. She knew how much I loved and respected her. And we just spent so much time together. And I have her recorded on the podcast. So grateful. But it did make me think, my relationship with my father is very fraught. I focus on everything that we don't have in common, which is actually quite a lot. That's actually most of the big things we disagree on. But we both lost the most important person in our life very suddenly. And I was so sad. Obviously, I'm still sad. It was only 2 years ago. It's the biggest thing in my life. But I was so constantly sad that I almost didn't have the emotional capacity to also be sad and angry and frustrated at all the annoying, selfish things that non-vegans were doing. So I had the incentive to improve my relationship with my dad because life can change very suddenly. And I also had not enough energy to exist as an angry vegan. I was a broken-hearted vegan. I couldn't be angry at every little thing as well. And so I pretty much just basically had to decide, almost as a way to honor mum, who absolutely led with love and compassion, try and embody her, as a way of being closer to her and feeling her and just coping with the non-vegan world and doing what's effective. I'd made that conscious decision, and I talk about it consciously as well, because you can bet people are going to hold you accountable, right? If I say I'm no longer that angry vegan and I show a little bit of natural angry Kate, people are going to call me on that. So that is the story behind why I decided to lead with love.
Thank you for sharing that story. I lost my mom 12 years ago, and we just passed the anniversary of her passing. And I love what you said about no regrets, because the grieving changes forms, but it never goes away. I mean, I'm sorry to inform you of that, but it never.
I'm so sure. 100%.
Yeah. But You mentioned about the relationship with your dad has improved because you've been very aware of that and taking steps to do that. So let's talk a little bit. And thank you for sharing that. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry for your
Mhm.
loss. Um,
Definitely.
when a family member is not vegan, because I live with a non-vegan, and I there are things that sometimes I just have to just turn the other way and realize it's not about me, it's about them. It's their choice. Um, what can you advise to people who live with a non-vegan family member to stay in that space of love and to realize that it's their choice as much as it's your choice, their choice not to be vegan as much as it's your choice to be vegan?
I just had to learn to let it go a little bit and to focus my energy on the people that were open minded and open hearted. When I focused on the differences between my father and I, and this is hard to admit, but I used to love and respect him less. And so I kind of had to ask myself, how's that working for you?
Mhm.
If you're just building up hate and resentment towards your only parents, I'm an only child as well, like, what's that going to look like 6 months,
Mhm.
12 months, 2
Mhm.
years down the track? It's not going to look good. It's not fun for either of you. And so I had that conversation with myself. And I would also say, you almost have to take the first step and put yourself out there first and be more accepting and less judgy first before they start to reciprocate.
Right.
And I actually suggested a trip to New Zealand, where I wasn't born, but I did grow up with dad, a year or so after mum died, to kind of see all the friends and family over there that weren't
Mhm.
able to make it after she died because of COVID. And that was a really bonding trip for both of us. And he noticed that at half a dozen places where we went, people that loved us cooked me vegan food. Now, my father had never made me so much as a baked potato in the entire years that I had been vegan. He was very much the anti-vegan. I would cook him all the vegetables to go with his meat, or full vegan meals for him and mum, whatever it was. He never made me, as I said, a potato. After that trip to New Zealand, the first time I came up to visit him, which was for the anniversary of mum's dying, he made me a full vegan meal. He
Wow.
said,
Wow.
I know you would have been really busy getting here. And so I've made this tofu stir fry. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. And so we've both bit by bit given more. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. I have to remind myself that he's not mum. He will never be mum. No one
Right.
will be mum. But it's kind of a conscious focus for our listeners on how you want it to be, the relationship you want to have, rather than everywhere that you disagree.
I love it. I love it. And
That's
your
beautiful.
attitude is so great. So,
Kathleen and I were talking just the other day, New Year's, I guess. We went to some very close friends, and we each brought something. And I have to tell you, I'm the only vegan amongst the 6 or 7 of us that were there. And everyone talked about what they brought, what they tried to bring that was vegan. And I
Oh.
told Kathleen, I was like, it's really great to know that those are the people that love you, that want
Mm.
to provide what they know, that you're a part of the family, and they want you to be as happy as you've brought them happiness.
Mm.
And it wasn't just me bringing a vegan dish and no one else was going. They all had something that we all could enjoy together that was vegan, along with their other stuff. And it's important for us to be in environments like that. And I think that's what the whole, I'll bring a vegan dish, so that everybody can have a sample, so
mhm.
to speak, and share the love that way. And so kudos to you for having rebuilt a relationship with your father that
Mhm.
sounds to me is just going to get stronger as time goes on.
Thank you. Absolutely.
That's great. And I was thinking about my Christmas and my New Year's too, because we live on opposite ends of the country. We're about 3,000 miles apart, and I don't know what that is in kilometers, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And for Christmas, actually, where we went for Christmas dinner, they cooked me a vegan gumbo, and then we went to another
Ah.
dinner later, and it was a vegan dinner. And then on New Year's Day, it was about a 50-50 split of the vegans and the carnivores. And the host made a point of sharing all the different dishes that were vegan. And that does tell me a lot. It means that they are making an effort, and they do want to embrace the fact that our choices may be different, but they're not bad choices. So in closing, what are your final thoughts for people? And V-Lynn, did you have any final questions before we have final thoughts from Kate?
My final thought was actually around your newsletter. It was a question around your newsletter. And is this the first time that you've had a newsletter that you've done for your business? Is this a shift because of the vegan space that you're in now? And what are you finding are the results of now versus previously if you had one before?
I've had them before. They've more been aligned with, it's more been a continuing automation after a giveaway, like a 3-day easy vegan plan or whatever it may be. This, I guess, is the first newsletter where I create it each week, which I love because it forces me to focus on all the good stuff as well. In the same way that choosing the attitude that you walk into the gym with forces you, like you're the better personal trainer, but actually you're happier as well. It's exactly the same. It forces me to focus on everything good. So far as the results, it hasn't been around that long. However, I've just had good feedback that it's nice to have something only positive that's coming out there, and that's also celebrating everyone that is doing amazing things in the vegan community.
Well, I have to say, I'm going to sign up for your newsletter because,
Good.
and I am unsubscribing on a lot of things these days, but it sounds your newsletter is right up my alley, and I know right up V-Lynn's alley.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts. What are your final thoughts for the people listening, for people new to being vegan, for people who are growing a vegan business?
That's a lot. My final thoughts, I always come back to the need to back yourself 100%. So whatever you're doing, whether it's business or health or fitness or just surviving in a non-vegan world, times are uncertain. They always have been. However, right now they feel even more uncertain. So if we can't have certainty in what's turning up today or tomorrow or next month, the one thing is that we can have certainty in is yourself. So to build your belief in yourself, one of the ways I consciously do this, if it doesn't come easy to you, is I actually have in the journal 3 daily reference points for success. And I also have 3 gratitudes and 3 things that would make tomorrow fabulous. So you don't need the journal to do this. You can write it down yourself, but it's consciously focusing on what you did really well today and also what would make tomorrow fabulous as well, because I truly believe what you focus on expands. And also when you're focusing on the good, it's just so much more fun.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Like this interview today. So
much fun.
More fun. Thank you, Kate. This was fabulous getting to know you and about your journey and your business and the journal. It's just fabulous.
Kathleen, thank you so much.
Oh, our absolute pleasure. Thank you for all you're doing. And I want to go ahead and V-Lynn, do you want to go ahead and put the banner up again of the web address?
Absolutely.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see it. No vanity here. So it's been delightful. And to all our viewers and listeners out there, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And thank you for all you're doing in the vegan entrepreneur revolution. Have a great day. You've been listening to the Veganpreneur Revolution Podcast Show with V-Lynn Hopkins and Kathleen Gage. Be sure to leave a review, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel. And visit our website at veganvisibilityproductions.com. That's veganvisibilityproductions.com. Have a great day and live healthy.